Good morning and welcome to the Hodge Pack. Life and everything in between. Hope you're warmed up, toasted up, coffee's warm. Unless you're like me, it's the Dr. Pepper's still cold, but it's cold there. I promise there's an L in there somewhere. We're glad that you're with us. The Hodge Pack, sports, life, and everything in between. Right here on 106.9, the Country Giant. Hodge, Josh, Misty worked some stuff with kiddos at the late start, joining us. Not sure. I think it may be the first time as a guest in this studio. But Zach Seitz, Zach, first time in this one?
Hodge, appreciate it. Yes, first time here.
It's a little different. I'm glad, a lot shorter drive when I was thinking about possible weather. Shorter drive. Of course, Josh lives out in the Ponderosa, out south of town. And even got the cowboy hat on today to verify the ranch.
It's snowing.
It is snowing.
My bald head needs to be covered by
Yes.
something.
So he's got the warm cowboy hat on, and so Zach is filling in for Misty. And we've got so much to talk about. I've literally written notes. It's very much like the text I sent last night. I'm sure we'll get into that, unfortunately. But guys, there's so much to talk about. Josh, we say a lot. And again, we're in our Potosi Live studio in the Mall of Abilene. Appreciate them all opening up. All things, of course, we're presented by Lyle Land Cattle Guest up here on our Pest Control phone line. But Josh, we talk about during football season, you could have a 3-hour show because there's so much to talk about. Well, now that you add in 5 straight days of playoff football that kicked off last night, we've got so much to talk about this morning. And last night for a game that started up like, are we going to get the penalty kicks like in soccer? And the other football, last night delivered.
No, it definitely did. It was, that was one of those things that the defenses were really playing well there at the first, and the offense couldn't get anything going. It was very old school football. They were running the ball. Both teams were. No one was able to really make a big play. The halftime adjustments turned it into a shootout.
Yeah, I think this is what we've all been wanting. We've had the first round and then the quarterfinals, by and large, outside of maybe one game, left a lot to be desired. But we're now in the semifinals, and 2 really good teams just trading blows. It was fun to watch.
Well, and I felt bad. And again, we got a lot to talk about. We've got, again, game 2 tonight, Texas and Ohio State playing just down the road. A lot of people were probably, especially the ESPN people that were there in 2010, having a little PSTD from the Super Bowl that was there except it was a lot worse then because they couldn't get around. And I saw Laura Rutledge.
PSTD.
Yeah, I don't know what that is.
Yeah, whatever those letters were. There you go. I was reading the eye chart, and I don't chart. That came out wrong too. Good. Not a mic. Keep going. Yeah, start that car. But Laura Rutledge, it was funny yesterday. Laura was walking, I guess maybe to the stadium. And she follow her on Instagram. She was talking about, I'm in Dallas or in Texas, and it's snowing, but it's like it's throwing ice at me. And I guess maybe in New England and the Northeast, they may probably. Do you think they see a lot of sleet, or is they pretty much their rarity is that, and it's probably more just snow all the time?
It's got to be mostly snow.
Ice
is more of a southern
It was
thing.
just funny because she's like, it's like they're throwing ice at me. But anyway. So weather up there is totally crazy. They kept saying last night it's a chilly 57 in Miami last night. But there's so much again to talk about. The coaching carousel. I put it in the Facebook tease. Jerry tells Mike, no, on you're not leaving the house. I still own you till Tuesday. So we have a lot to talk about.
We have to talk about the Cowboys.
Well, I guess depends. We could talk about the possibly do Bears, but we don't know if that guy's going anywhere. So anyway, lots to talk about. We'll get into last night's game. We'll preview the playoff game tonight again in Arlington as UT Quinn Ewers going to play his former team, which I would say former team with a cup of coffee. Who you want to talk about a transition from long hair, look like a backwood country boy coming to Texas, clean cut, and all these things totally changed.
Red Sox to the Yankees.
Yeah. And so anyway, we'll talk about that. And of course, the NFL playoffs start tomorrow. Unfortunate, a lot of stuff going on out in California with the fires. They have moved the Rams game. The Rams and the Vikings games are moving to Arizona. Of course, when you look at all the things, a few weeks ago we saw the events in New Orleans, that terror attack, and then this with the fires, just a lot too, basically a couple weeks in a row of tragic stuff. The devastation out there has been awful.
Really, some of those pictures are just like,
And still have not said
Be
anything.
real.
Still haven't had anything what caused it or anything like that. I haven't seen any of that. Of course, I haven't watched a whole lot of it. I've just seen social media pics and stuff like that. But
I heard at least the Palisades fire, which I think is the biggest one, just started from somebody having a fire in his backyard, and just those winds out there, just so crazy. It's just.
well, and they were talking on the Paul Feinbaum show yesterday that, again, football is very minute when it all comes to and everything in perspective, but absolutely would not have been able to play the Rose Bowl this week if that was happening. If the Rose Bowl was then, they'd be moving it as well. And so, thoughts and prayers. There's places you can donate. Be sure you donate and actually helps people if you do donate, and not just something that goes to.
What are the places that don't help people?
there's a lot of places that are just overhead.
Right, and so we don't want to throw them under the wheel, but we'll try to get places on our Facebook page if you want to help up there with your individual, your church, or whatever, those things going on. So we've got lots to cover, coaching carousel, and so let's just dive into our Lawrence Hall headline report. One of the things we don't want to not talk about baseball because there is this sort of going on. Did I see or did I not see Verlander still playing and heading out to San Francisco?
That is correct. I think
Verlander heading out. The longevity, I guess. I know he's not 46 or Nolan Ryan, but he feels like he's the Tom Brady of pitching. That are we starting to see these pitchers pitch a little longer? I mean, when did Nolan retire? Josh, you surely know that at the top of your head. How old was Nolan?
He was 46, 1993.
So in his in his 40s, still throwing the heat with just Advil.
Right.
And so anyway, Verlander on there. Any other baseball news that you can think of that it's not on the rundown? I'm just throwing that out.
There's still a lot of free agents, a lot of possible movement. The Rangers signed Chris Martin, who is a pretty good ninth or eighth inning guy. So I don't know what their plans are going forward. I hope it's to get a real closer. And that because really they've shaped up the bullpen quite a bit, added a lot of new faces. In fact, there's just going to be a couple guys there that were even around last year. So unless they bring back Kirby Yates, which is kind of fingers crossed if they will.
Yeah.
But
so anyway, just wanted to be sure to touch baseball because it's going to be here before you know it. We were talking about it at the office the other day. When you start making plans, like February is way down the road. Pitchers and catchers will be reporting before you know it. The Super Bowl will be over, and then we'll talk about them as we got a little bit later on. Do you plan vacation for post football? How do you plan for that? Because stuff does change. Let's dive into the coaching carousel. One of the big news this week was obviously the Cowboys lose last week. Season comes to an end. Heartbreaking loss, I guess you could say. I don't know if it really is heartbreaking when you're in the situation that you're in. But McCarthy's contract ends on Tuesday. The Bears have reached out to Jerry, I guess probably as he was basking in the light of his Landman debut. I've seen him in two shows now, The League and Landman, who ironically, he might have done a better job with that than he does GM.
I was about to say that was pretty impressive.
Yeah.
Pretty critical of Jerry and all the Cowboy dealings, but he can act.
Yeah, he did a good job.
Or maybe he's just not acting.
Well,
just play yourself.
Yeah. I've got my boys up there running the team. But Mike McCarthy was called by the Bears to get permission for the Cowboys were, and Jerry denied it. If you deny him, are you just doing that because you can, or does Jerry really not know what he's going to do on Tuesday?
I think it was a formality. They had the right to maintain exclusive negotiations until Tuesday. Why not hold on to that? I don't know. I don't think Jerry even knows what he's going to do. But in that situation where he's thinking to himself, McCarthy still might be a possibility for us, why not maintain that exclusive negotiation window?
I guess, the human side of it, you would say, well, you could cost McCarthy a opportunity elsewhere. But on the Cowboy side, if you are mulling over, seeing what your options are, he honestly could be looking, talking, dealing with other people that we don't know about. And if it didn't work out with guy A, McCarthy could be guy C or D, but you don't know, and you don't want to lose that if, it's kind of like bird in the hand, two in the bush, or whatever they say.
Yeah, I got one sentence, a word while ago wrong. I'm not trying to add another phrase to anything. So, because there's only 6 jobs open right now, and you got the Bears and the Jets and the Saints were open in a year. Gerard Mayo gets let go after year 1. Pierce let go after year 1, and then the Jaguars job is open. To me, of those jobs, and the hot candidates right now are Aaron Glenn and Ben Johnson and Mike Vrabel. All signs are showing that Vrabel's probably going to end up in New England, so that job's probably going to be eliminated. I don't know. And of course, Pete Carroll interviewed for the Bears job yesterday, is going to interview for the the Raiders job either tomorrow or next week. I don't know where Mike's going to go. The hard part is as Cowboy fans, we look, and we got about 2 minutes left. We look at the success that he had and then the success that he did. And we probably look, accepting that he's a good coach, sometimes maybe harder for this fan base. But when you look at, again, it's kind of like 32 quarterbacks in the league. There's not 32 good quarterbacks. There's not 32 great coaches. And Mike McCarthy's got to be in that batch of would be better than the other people you might hire.
Well, you talk about current coaches, and there are very few that have Super Bowls on their resume. Like you said, there's maybe 10 good coaches, and while we've seen Mike McCarthy for 5 years now and don't think that's probably the answer in Dallas, there's a lot of fan bases and a lot of teams look at Mike McCarthy's resume, and it's not that hard to talk yourself into.
And the Bears is one of them.
Absolutely. Well, especially when you look at the candidates that they have been interviewing, most of them are retreads that have done nothing other than they've been a head coach before.
Or they've brought in the person that was the hot candidate at the time, the hot coordinator, Nagy. They did bring in John Fox, but it was Nagy. Then they went to Uberflus, and now they're looking to possibly do that again. And I'm like, do you want that? Yes, maybe Ben Johnson's a great guy, but is he going to be a great head coach? And do you want to risk that again if you're the Bears?
Well, and I've talked about this on the show previously, that the track record of coordinators going to head coach, and especially offensive coordinators, is not good. I mean, it's so you're talking about a coin flip at best of whether they have success or not. And that's something.
But yeah, I would just say that the Shanahan's and the Rams, McVay, those guys, those are the reason you want to hire that hot.
Oh, right.
Because you're hoping they are the next one.
They're the next one.
And I think, and again, we'll go to commercial and we can bump some of this in the NFL talk. But I also think the success and the reason, and he's been talked about, one, he coached him in college, and two, the success he's had with Jaden Daniels, is why Kingsbury is now elevated as a possible candidate in Chicago. And some will say, well, he wasn't a great head coach at Tech, and he wasn't a great head coach at Arizona. He had a little bit, he got him in the playoffs 1 year, but if he could create that situation, that's why I think Kingsbury even has a better chance than maybe even Ben Johnson to get the Bears job. A lot of other jobs out there. We'll talk about those later. But when we come back, college football last night, Zach mentioned it. We finally got what we've been wanting in this bracket playoff system. And it was a great game last night. And will we get number 2 tonight? We'll be back for this.
You're very right, though. There's a couple of guys now that have had very good success out of the young, hot offensive coordinator box, which is why Kingsbury went to Arizona.
Yeah.
Yeah, like
After being fired at Tech.
yeah. Because that's one thing
and finding a great way to win.
The NFL and all leagues are kind of like this, but I think the NFL is probably the worst. Is just copycat. Like that worked for that team, so now we got to do that.
So, but you look at it's hiring Ben Johnson or Kingsbury, or you hire Ron Rivera.
Yeah.
Who ironically interviewed for that job too. course, he's a former Bear, but he interviewed for the,
How many opportunities do we have to see you?
Completely screw up to know you're not really a good head coach.
well, and Steve Spagnuolo is another.
Can you use this to charge my phone?
Yeah.
You can.
Whose is it?
It's mine, but yeah.
Oh, I thought there was one that Greg Austin had. But yeah, sure. I didn't know it was Zach.
Well, if there's another one, I'll use it. I just realized that.
There's a plug over there. It's not going to be real close to your phone.
I'm not supposed to check it out, charge it later.
Hey, until this starts to, hey,
Hey.
hey, until this, hey, is there a,
Yeah, plug in
is that more than one outlet? Can we plug the, no, what I'm saying is just have the computer ready. And if I need to go back in, we'll unplug your phone and plug the
Okay.
computer back in. Okay, we're still.
This happens. Magnet, like, doesn't, and I wake up the next day and my phone is like almost dead.
I've gone away from the magnet
Like,
charger because of that. It happens all the time.
and it's the real one, it's not a fake one, it's the Apple.
Yeah. And it buzzes like it's charging when you put it on there.
Then I go to sleep and I wake up the next day and then I realize like
You know what it reminds me of? It's like
30% battery and I'm not gonna make it through the day.
It reminds me, it sleeps and moves. When it rolls over, it gets off the charge part. And charging. And then
Those
you start-
vibrating text messages you're getting in the middle of the night.
And then you start looking, okay, all right, yeah, you're still
Shake
green.
it off.
Yeah, you're still green. You're still good.
Sometimes I wish that there was a way to easily manipulate my texting because my texts go off, but I don't receive text from 2 to 5. It just, yeah. But nights like last night, I'm sitting there looking at it and so I
Yeah,
kind of
you
keep
know.
up because people were texting. But then, like you and Mitch had that text conversation and I never saw it until this morning. Just trying to get away.
Well, I didn't want to lose the computer. I'm trying to.
Oh, I can,
He turns off notifications for that text all day.
yeah.
It's not long enough.
That's what she said.
Notice I did not. Notice I didn't.
Heard it a
fight.
million times.
Notice I'm not fighting back. There's not another one in this. I'll ask you. Hey, is the belt's not at your house, is it?
Yes, it is.
Okay. I wish we had one more little power strip. None.
Well, if the battery is low, and I'll change the battery.
It says, I don't know why that doesn't charge very well. It must be right, and it is time for college football playoffs. It's happening. The brackets are rolling. I had 3 of the 4. We appreciate everybody that filled out a bracket and did our Fat Mat Roofing bracket challenge. Good stuff going on there. It looks like our buddy Evans at the top of that, and Will Clay, whoever that is. I think I know who it is, but Will Clay and the Moose. The Moose is loose. Evan is doing well. I had 3 of the 4. Did not have Penn State in. I had Penn State losing, but had the other ones in. Texas, Ohio State. No, I had Texas, Penn State, and Notre Dame. Didn't have Ohio State. I had Tennessee beating Ohio State, and that worked out well for me. So, but last night we talked about it, and I wrote it down in my rundown of if this is the thought I had, about the whole thing. How have I liked the new format?
You wrote an essay?
No, didn't write that.
More of a manifesto.
Yeah, who's coming with me? But how I like the new format, and I've liked it, and I wrote this down. It lived up to the hype of leading into the bracket, but the game's not. Like the hype of the most anticipated college football season of the year and the bracket and all those things, it lived up leading into it, and even selection Sunday when you're sitting there wondering, is Alabama getting in? Is SMU getting in? Is South Carolina getting in? Ole Miss, whoever. It lived up to that, but unfortunately, the first few games didn't. I mean, the Texas-Clemson game was semi-close. The 10-point game in Indiana-Notre Dame was not. And then until Arizona and Texas played, and up until last night, we hadn't had what we wanted, but we got it last night.
Yes, you're right. There's only been 2 games that were really like competitive to the end football games. The Notre Dame has won a couple games that were closer, I guess, but not real close as far as like the way the game played. Just Indiana never looked like they had a chance. But you're right in the fact that the regular season was much more enjoyable with the notion that win your conference, you're automatically getting in. I really, really like that. I think that should be something that I don't understand why there was not always more emphasis put on winning a conference. And then how it played out going down where, to the wire, every game matters. They say that, but with this format, it really, truly does, because in previous years, there'd be games at the end of the year that in Alabama, if they lost 2 games, they get that third loss or whatever, then, they're like 2 games, you're usually not making the BCS if you lost 2 games, and so it added some fun with that. And then, there's always you get to argue, fight, prove Hodge incorrect on live radio about the selection process and who's in and who's out, which I still 100% stand by my previous statement that there's not 12 teams that really deserve to be in a playoff, but and all of the teams that were bubble teams that everyone was like, oh, this guy should have made it, all have flopped in bowl season. So it's been fun.
Yeah, I agree. But college football has traditionally always been top heavy. You have maybe 2 or 3 really good teams. I think that is going to change. It has a little bit, but will continue to do more so with NIL and the transfer portal. But historically, since we've gone to the 4-team format up until this year, most of those semifinal games have not been close either.
No, they've not. They've been blowouts, and sometimes even the national championship. And I know the TCU game is a tough one, but even some of those, Deshaun Watson them on a last second pass to Hunter Renfro, and then
They're certainly going to get Clemson.
Oh,
Right?
no doubt. Tua, big come from behind the Georgia games, but it has been that. It's not like we've had a ton of just amazing games previously, but now you're getting, and I think we're going to see tonight and when it's all over, the 4 teams that are playing, and including last night's Penn State, all had a chance to win the thing. And in years past, there was 2 teams that had a chance to win anything in the grand scheme, and they had to put 2 other teams in. The guy out in USC that's been struggling since he's gone out to USC, Lincoln Riley he would get Oklahoma there because, well, they were in the Big 12 and they had a dominance of it. But when they made it to the playoffs, they didn't compete real well. And so, but anyway, in all that, I like the format. They're going to have to change all that stuff next year. I don't think you're going to see Boise State in the power, the group of the other people conferences ever have a bye again, not for a while.
Nor should they.
They shouldn't. I mean, and that's the one thing about the format that truly did bother me was the seeding. Once they set the 12, I was perfectly happy with who they picked for those 12 to be. You could nitpick one or the other, but I mean, I didn't have a real hard time accepting that being the 12. But then why are they seated, I don't know. Why does a team get a bye that is a, group of 5, not in that wasn't in the top 10 all year, it doesn't make sense.
It's like I said, they got the teams right. You can say exception of Indiana. The 12 were correct. They see it wrong. They'll have to fix it next year. But let's talk about last night. 27-24, the beginning of the game, it's back and forth. Zach even mentioned it. You talk about the text chain that kept growing. And that it wasn't a whole lot of offense going on. It looked like 2 SEC games that it might end up 8-6. And wow. But then Riley Leonard gets hurt. Grant Cunningham mentioned it that Penn State, Singleton, they were just running it down. Penn State. So it looked like 2 teams that were nervous. And then they finally got going. But then Riley Leonard goes into the 10th. They're down 10-0. Angley comes in, leads them to points. And it feels like that field goal really kind of set the tone to give Notre Dame a little bit of a push.
Well, it did. It gave them that just enough momentum that they could move the ball down and score. Always got to break the ice, and especially when there's a game like that is just, offense was so hard to come by early, and once that kind of, tipped over the other way, it went very quickly the other way.
Yeah, that was just old school football. I mean, that was 2
It matched your uniforms.
Teams.
It matched your uniforms. No decals, no nothing. Just get after it.
The only thing missing of that should have been played somewhere in the Midwest where it's 30 degrees. And
it should have been played at Shotwell out here with some snow and ice going on, and no sleeves and random people wearing their no shirts and stuff in Miami. But I want to explain my text last night. It was very butchered when it came out. Is that
You're a wordsmith, truly.
well, James Franklin, who now is 1-18 against ranked teams. I feel like Penn State, of the 4 that were left, were like the group of 4, the group of however many there are now, pressured to win and like, hey, we do belong. And I think Dempsey or somebody translated it to perfection. And now, unfortunately, I don't think he got out coached. I don't think he got out anything. He just, unfortunately, his quarterback made a very bad decision.
The chips just didn't fall there.
And I don't think the pressure that Ryan Day and him both looked like they were on, I don't think you could look at it like, well, Franklin just needs to go and they need to move on. That was my point of the pressure that Penn State had. And even though they've been a good team all year, and honestly, I think they should have beat Ohio State earlier in the year. In all that, Notre Dame stepping up, Riley Leonard coming in, 2 big interceptions, only had 35 yards rushing, but it seemed like the yards that he was picking up were huge on continuing drives, gets the rushing touchdown, and then somehow Greathouse looked like he was crossing over people like Tim Hardaway for the big touchdown. But last night's game was just absolutely fantastic.
Well, it was, and you're right. Leonard just seemed like when he ran the ball, it was key every time. Picked up first downs on 2-yard carries, got away from pressure, and got 5 or 6 yards, so it wasn't 3rd and 10. It ended up just being 3rd and 4. It was just very, very clutch, and came up when he needed to. That did throw that one interception where the defensive end picked him off was just a what are you thinking kind of throw, because the defensive end was underneath, the corner was over the top. If the defensive end didn't pick it off, the corner was going to pick it off. It was just not a good, well thought out throw. But then came back, totally redeemed yourself. And Greathouse did make he broke 2 sets of ankles on one play.
Well, and you look at it, the Singleton guy was fantastic. And a guy that didn't get talked about enough because, again, he only had 45 yards rushing. But Jeremiah Love, who didn't know if he was going to play, how well the touchdown run he had was unbelievable. It's like, come on, ride the Love train, and we're going in because he was just huge. Tyler Warren, he's a guy that I would take him on my team any day of the week. And I'm not sure if I would not treat him like the kid from a 1A, 2A school, you're going to be, and they did, quarterback and all that. We're just going to let you play everything.
Yeah, right.
And if we lose, fine. You're going to be sore tomorrow, but you're going to play everything. We're going to make you feel like Travis Hunter when it's all said and done. You're playing everything. It was fantastic. When we come back, we'll talk about the Texas game tonight. I want to throw this out. Hindsight's always 20/20. If we were at a coffee shop in a small town or a big town, get coffee, talking about how bad the coach was. Did you feel like the way, maybe out coaching on Franklin's side, the way they were trying to go score was right? Some people have said they should have ran the football and just went to overtime. I thought they handled it right. I just thought Aller just made a bad decision.
Made a bad decision. That at the end of you can talk about Franklin or Freeman who made the biggest mistakes. What it came down to, while both quarterbacks made mistakes, come crunch time, who was going to blink first? And unfortunately, it was Allard, and they couldn't recover from it.
Yeah.
They had timeouts. There's plenty of time to not necessarily have to push it hard to try to score. So in the moment, it's exactly how I would have coached and how I would have wanted my team coached if I was the fan, sitting at home. So
Be aggressive.
I can't, you can, like you said, hindsight is 20/20. If you go back in time, maybe it's like, yeah, let's just run it a few times and go to overtime. Obviously, that's what you do, knowing the outcome, but I think it was the right decision.
I thought that, again, Singleton, he just unfortunately happened to be on the team that lost last night. 3 touchdowns, ran the ball real well. The only thing, and again, Greg McElroy talked about it with Scott Van Pelt last night, that the decision to throw across your body back across the field, and Allard,
Middle school quarterbacks are taught you can't do that.
And Allard even said last night in the press conference, he said, I was trying to throw it away. Well, and again, his first option was